Today, I'm speaking to Marigol Era, who has very kindly given up some time today to come on to this healing feeling and discuss my chosen subject, healing. For those of you watching the video, yes, the cat photo bomber is in place. She is behind me, just providing assistance cat support. But for those of you who can't see the screen, I am looking at a very beautiful, very bright, very healthy looking face of a gorgeous lady who behind her has what looks like an amazing kind of gold. Is it like a wall hanging? Yeah.
Yeah,
Which just kind of radiates light and positivity. And so, Marigold, let's hear your story. How does healing come into your life?
that's so I would say the beginning of the healing process for me was when my mother actually passed away from cancer, and she struggled with all kinds of symptoms before having the official diagnosis of cancer. And so I've seen her going through all of that for 5 years, and it was so painful to see someone so close, going through that. And when it begins, like, I think I was like 12 when it started. And when she passed away, I was 17. And so, like, the whole system of medical care for me was like very intrusive, very like I'd say like even aggressive. Like, I remember seeing her, like, all of those chemical in her, and her body was changing in a way that wasn't healthy because they were trying to get rid of the cancer. um so with chemo and all of that, and I've just like the smell of it, like the house was smelling, that sickness, it was like I still remember that feeling, of smelling when she was in the house, and to see your mother going through that, like, for me it was like the whole time I was like, there must be something else we can do. Like, this is so painful to watch, right? So even at a very young age, I was like, there might be something, right? And I remember I have like this aunt that this aunt that is like a little more on the spiritual journey. And she was always like trying to understand why this was happening to her, right? It was like, so your body's telling you something, and like she was trying to help her in like speaking about her trauma, right? And my mother was very closed up around that. Like, she didn't want to speak about anything that happened to her, and we know that a lot have happened to her, but she was so closed up and so alone, in that process. And by her keeping silence and like not speaking up about what happened to her, all of those like traumatic events that she went through, I feel like even at that age, I felt like this was actually creating the disease. And so from that point on, like, I was always like interested in like what the body is telling, right? What is, like, for me, the body never lies. So there's always something that the body is telling us. And even with our kids, like, I'm a mother of three, and I remember my first one was going to kindergarten and she was always sick. She was never sick. She was like the healthiest baby, but when she started kindergarten, she started to get sick. And then, like, you can say, oh, well, like, they're around other kids, and like, it's just like travels, right? Those little like cold or like whatever flu. And but for me, it was like, I think that my kids is trying to tell me something, that like they're not all sick. Why is mine like so sick all the time? Like, it was like there was always something. And so I was back to the body's telling me something. And she wasn't speaking at the time. She was a late speaker. And so I started to trying to understand, like, what's going on? Why is she always having symptoms? And then when I pulled her out of the kindergarten and we started to heal all of those um it wasn't the symptom that I was treating. It was like the cause of it. So she didn't feel like listened to. Like she felt like, that separation anxiety from like not being with me, and she was like trying to tell me that she doesn't want to go every day. Like maybe once in a while it's fun, but to go every day. And then I was like, so yeah, like there was like some rules. So I had to put her every day because that's how it was working here, right? So I was like kind of forcing her to go because I had to.
Gosh.
And I couldn't choose to just like let her go just once in a while. I had to be there. She had to be there every days of the week. So and then when I decided to pull her out and to really address all of those things, then she stopped being so sick, even when she was around other kids. And
Wow.
so that's like, for me, the body is always telling us something that we don't have time to address. It goes
Yeah.
too fast. We don't take the time to meditate or to listen to
Yeah,
ourselves,
exactly.
Yeah. So
That's
that's the
incredible.
start of it. And then later on, I went in like in Ayurvedic school. So because I wanted to learn more about the body, and like I'm no expert, like I'm not a doctor or anything, but I'm more of like an intuitive beings and just like trying to listen to my body. So even if like the other day I fell down the stairs and I got pretty hurt. And
Crikey.
yeah, it was pretty traumatic, and I was like, all right, so this is happening, like I'm creating this thing, right? And so I have like all of those books, and I went to read, and I was putting so much pressure on myself with my business and my family, and I had like an amazing guest in my home, but it was like taking a lot of time out of me, and I didn't have like, so I was like all over the place, and every part of my body that was hurt, when I looked it up, it made sense with what I was going through at the time. And so I was like, all right, so my body is telling me to stop, right? It's like I'm doing too much right now. And so I just like it. For me, the minute I understand what's going on, it's like the body can actually shift very quickly and just like transform this thing that is happening in your body, right? So it's
Amazing.
just a matter of like being so conscious of what's happening in your day.
Oh, absolutely. I think yeah, completely. And firstly, I mean, how are you having fallen down the stairs? Are you feeling a bit better now?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
now I can actually laugh about it. It was like 2 weeks ago, and like I got pretty bruised up. My
yeah.
shoulder was like pretty yeah, but now like I think I'm okay. Like for the most part I'm okay. Like my shoulder is good, and like my legs, it was my legs more. I was so worried about my teeth though. I was like,
Yes.
oh my god, please, not my teeth, like you're falling, you're like, no, I was like, not my
It's,
teeth.
it's one of those. I mean, I have my fair times of falling over, and it's like, the nose. I think the nose we could probably do something with, but the teeth, I do not want to be going to try and find one, a dentist in this country, or two, the cost, because neither is good. But let's not go into that little sideline of conversation. But let's come back. So this is what I'm loving hearing, is the fact that you have intuitively, from a very young age, despite seeing such a really hard witnessing your mother's illness and her disease, you began to feel and suspect that there was more to the body's capabilities. Then when you saw your daughter in a school environment where she was a little bit late to start talking, and we've had experience of that in our family. And I think it is hard for the child, because obviously, especially when they're thrown into a school where other children are talking, it must be very isolating. Her health did again, went downhill. And then again, you were sort of like, well, hang on, actually, this is the subconscious, the body physically showing what the mouth cannot articulate. And you started to actually improve her health through removing her. And this then led to your pathway into Ayurvedic. Is it called Ayurvedic medicine, or is it just the Ayurvedic study? Does the word medicine
Well,
get used in it, or how does
yeah, it was like the Ayurvedic. It was very the name of the program was Feminine Ayurvedic Wellness program. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it
Wow.
was like more of a wellness program than a like doctor. Like I'm not like a professional Ayurvedic doctor. They're so amazing,
Yeah.
but like it was mainly to understand like in a more like Eastern way of looking at the body, because
Mhm.
their way is so different from the Western version of it, right? And so I wanted to have like both side of the picture because I feel like they complement each other.
Absolutely. And for those of us who aren't familiar with this practice, what is the sort of the definition, or sort of how is a verdict, if I can't say it, what is it?
Ayurvedic.
I
So
ever, yes, sorry.
yeah, so Ayurveda is like the ancient Indian medicine. And so the word is so beautiful. The word in Sanskrit, it means the study of life. So it's like the
Wow.
science of life, and so that's what I love the most about Ayurveda. It's like their medicine, the way they see the body, it's just like it just brings everything in. So like your relationship, like they can affect your health, right? Your job, if you do a commute every day, if you're like what you're eating, how you're eating it, like do you eat in front of the TV, or are you stressful, or are you like do you sleep well, or like all of that, like what's your relationship with spirituality, all of that can actually influence the body. And so they take everything in consideration, which in the Western world we don't often do. And so it's like, for me, like as I said, from a young age, I was convinced that our body is telling us something, that like we're not detached from our body, and we're not like. And so of course, if like we're stressful because we have like exam, or when we're in school, or if you got like this stressful job, like, and of course your digestion's not going to be as strong as if you're like peacefully going through life.
Hmm.
And so they take everything in consideration. And it's there's a lot of like daily routine that they do to cleanse your body daily, so you don't pack up all those toxins in. And so I really enjoyed that about it. So you got like the neti pot, like so you cleanse your nasal with it, and it's just like you can scrape your tongue, because in the morning when you wake up, you get like this white coat on
Mm.
your tongue, which is like the toxins of the night, like because you've been regenerating through the night, and then all the toxins are going into your mouth. And so when we drink in the morning without taking that out, it's like you're just like
Oh,
drinking your toxin
oh,
back in.
oh gosh.
I know,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah.
it's so simple. And you just like scrape your tongue, you wash your mouth like in the morning. And so when you drink your first drink, like you're not like reinventing, like you're not just retaking in all those toxins. And
Well,
so there's a lot of those kind of little daily practices that are super fun to do, and they just like brings the toxin level down, and so the less toxin you have, the less chance you have to get sick, right?
mm. Oh, well, I mean, that was a top tip there for anyone who hadn't or doesn't do tongue scraping. I think that's a really, really interesting one, because it makes a lot of sense actually. If you've got this kind of this film that's developing on the tongue, you don't want it going back in. It's got to be something that's coming up and coming out. So no, we'll link to tongue scrapers in the show notes, I'm sure. You can recommend them. Um, so so this learning journey you went on, there were little bits of sort of self-care practices and tools that you could take on board, and your life up to that point. Had you been doing something else, and then you decided you wanted to go in a sort of a healing coach direction? Is that sort of what happened?
Yeah, well, at first when I took the program, it was very much just for myself, because I wanted to learn that for me and for my family, to be able to guide them without the medical system like always there, like because for the most part, we can deal with our own bodies, you know, and then sometimes like we have like a broken legs and like, you know, like that system is super useful in those sense because like you got a broken bone. But if you're just like, I don't know, like for like here in Canada, and especially when I was in Quebec, like the emergency room was always filled up with people with like the little things, you know, and it's like,
Mhm.
well, why don't we learn how to take care of our own bodies so that we don't like, you know, clog the whole system with like, you know, like
Mm.
banal stuff, you know, it's just like we can take care of ourselves. And so I felt like it was a good teaching for our kids, for my kids, you know, to learn how to take care of their self, you know. Um, so that was the beginning of it. And then the more I was doing it, the more I was in love with it, and the more I was like, well, people need to know that. Like it's just so fun,
Definitely.
you know. And so then I started to coach a little bit. Like it was like early pandemic, and so I started to coach, and then like we moved and so many things happened, so I didn't pursue like full time this career of like helping people with their health, but I'm still doing that for myself. And so lately I've been like more stable in my life, and I'm like, well, maybe I should just like, you know, talk more about it because it's such a big part of my life that I'm doing every every day. I'm taking care of myself in an Ayurvedic way, and every fall and spring I'll do like a major cleanse of like a month-long cleanse, because just like to clear all those toxins that I didn't get to
Mm.
in the other seasons. And it's just like, yeah, just helpful, you know. It's just so helpful, and it's just like a good way of living, you know. It's like you clean your house, right? And so why don't we clean our own body? It's like it's like for me it's like, you know, it's the
Definitely.
same thing. Like you do your spring cleaning in your house, you do it in your body as well.
Mm, perfect. And when you're talking about these toxins, what do you
Mm,
think these toxins might be and where are they coming from? Is there any way that we can try and avoid them?
I think so, yeah. And there's like my teacher, it was so great because she was always telling stories, and so the stories for the toxin was so good. Like it was just so cute. So I'm going to tell you the story because it's so cool. So
Awesome.
it's like we have this janitor inside of us, right? So this janitor is like in charge of cleaning all those toxins that we're giving it, right? So when we have stress, when we don't deal with our emotion, when we eat like crap, when we, you know, don't sleep well, you know, these are all like, you know, bringing toxins in. Like sometimes it's like the air we breathe if we're in the city, or, you know, like there's like toxins everywhere, right? We cannot avoid them. We just like can like learn how to clean them. And so we've got this little janitor inside of us, but this janitor always worked 2 hours, never more. All right. So he's just working those 2 hours, and he's cleaning as much as he can in 2 hours, and he's doing it, and he's like super chill about it. And when it's 2 hour, let's say it's 2 hour, just like punch, like he's gonna just like go and watch TV, or like he's just
Yeah,
gonna chill, right?
just
And
chill. Yeah.
so he's never gonna do overwork. Never, 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 right? And so when we have like, let's say we have a big party, all right, and then we're bringing the cake and the wine and whatever, you know, the chips and all of that, and we eat so much more this day because like it was so fun and it was a party, right? So this janitor will still work 2 hours,
Uh,
and so there's going to be stuff that you won't have time to get to. And so these things are just going to sit there. And so if you do the same thing every day and you give him more than he can chew, these
yeah.
things are just like piling up, and he's never going to get to that. And these things, like the intestines are going to do their best to just like keep that in and like try to just like hold it in, right? But then
Mm.
at one point, that when there's too much, it's gonna just like get out of the intestine, go in the bloodstream, go in like wherever, right? And so that's why we need to just like take care of like the intake of toxin that we have in our daily life, you know. And
Mm.
so when you go to that party, right, you don't stay home, you go to that party, but the next day maybe you be careful about like what you're eating, right? Maybe you just do it less a little bit at that moment. And it's just a matter of like keeping a rhythm of eating well and like taking in stuff that are nourishing for you, instead of like just continuing on piling stuff up, and like, because this janitor just will not work more, you know. And so
Mm,
sometimes it will like result in like weight gain, or being like having like colds all the time, um
mm.
colds, like, or like, I don't know, like flu
Yeah.
or whatever, you know, like rashes.
Fatigue,
It can
yeah.
show up in
Conditions.
so many ways. And so, and in my knowledge, it will show up in a way where if you have a conflict in some part of your life, it's going to show up in the way that it's going to tell you what's the conflict. So that's what I've learned so far, you know. So if you
Brilliant.
have like anxiety and separation, it will just like come up on your hand, like you're gonna have like rashes on your hand because you need to be holed up, you know, like to be like, so it's like if it's gonna happen in your throat, maybe you have something that you might need to say, or that you wish you could say, or that you said but you regret it, but you're not talking about it, you know. And then it's gonna happen here, you know. Maybe you're gonna lose your voice, or you know, like that kind of stuff. And so that's what
Mm.
I've learned so far
Wow.
regarding that.
Yes, and I read somewhere that in Ayurvedic medicine practice, someone, you can have 10 people come along with arthritis, but in natural fact, for those 10 people, there'll be probably quite different reasons for it's coming to be.
Yeah,
And and just to recap for those people, so we've talked about the self-care practices you can do daily, the being aware of actually having cleanses to actually sort out anything that's built up. Um, and there was something else that you just said. Should have been writing notes, but it's what's interesting is that there is a, again, almost a kind of a lifestyle, of things that you should be thinking about doing, not only to kind of counter the things that come up like illness or injury, but actually when you're just going along, just a bit like brushing your teeth, doing the tongue scraping, putting these self-care tools into daily practice so that you are upping your possibilities of being healthy and living a sort of an enriched life, I suppose. Would that
yeah,
be right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly, to be able to enjoy life without like all the, I don't know, bloating or rashes, or you know, all that little, those little buggers, right? They're just like, oh, I'm bloated, all right, so you just like go through life bloated, but there's another way, you know,
Yeah.
there's another way.
And actually getting to the sort of the root causes of things, I suppose. When you're talking to people, you were saying how it's sort of like a functional medicine doctor, you go through sort of the history and things which are happening in their lives, sort of career, relationships, and all that sort of things. Do you find that you can quite quickly get to sort of the crux of a problem, or are many people sort of holding it at a subconscious level?
Well, the subconscious is so powerful sometimes, like it's just like, hmm. Yeah, sometimes it can be hard for people to really understand this thing, because the subconscious, when it's so um ingrained, right? So we just act out of that place, right? So we're not like conscious of most of what's happening in our life, you know? Like I've read somewhere that from the time you're like 35, 95% of your daily life is from the subconscious.
Gosh.
So, right? It's insane. But like to be able to just like bring back awareness in our daily life, like it's just like for me, it just changed the whole game, because the subconscious can be so powerful, right? And we identify with our past all the time. And so by doing that, I think we shoot ourselves in the foot, but it's a learning process to do so. I was just talking about that with my husband. It's like, how can we create our everyday without the past always there? You know, like we go through life thinking that, oh, I will not do that because I did it in the past, and that the result wasn't good, so I'm not gonna do it again. And for some, things. I mean, like, if it's about like putting your hand in the fire, of course you're not going to do it again because, you know, it's hot and you will burn yourself.
Okay.
So that's like subconscious will like help you in that sense, right? Because you know that the fire is hot, so you're not going to put your hand in there. But let's say that you had like a car accident, and then like every time you're taking your car, you're stressed out because you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna have another accident. But that's just like, that's not true. Like, most of us take our car every day and we're not having any accidents. So it's just like that one time experience is leading your whole experience right now, you know, and it's happening in so many part of our life. And so being aware of the subconscious is like the step one for me in my healing process, to be very much aware of what's going on in your mind, and to be able to just like change the script, create something new without like those fears that are not real in the moment right now. They're not real. Like, I'm not like, let's say with this car accident, like if I'm taking my car, I'm not having a car accident when I'm taking my car. Like, this is not happening for real right now. It's just a memory, right? And it's like
Exactly.
that for everything. So yeah, I think that when we do an assessment in Ayurveda and we go through all of those questions to see like what's going on, like why are you having all of those symptoms. I feel like for me, when I want to coach people on that, like for me, a big part will be to bring some awareness in the subconscious, because the body is telling you something that you might have like, you know, like just like try to avoid, and now it's coming knocking at your door again. And so yeah.
So, so would you say then, so actually someone who comes to you, for example, with a sort of like a lower back pain, are there sort of bits in the books and your text that actually then say, well, actually the back pain is associated with so and so. So even if your client doesn't actually immediately articulate that as being a problem, you've actually got a almost clue to where you need to kind of put your questioning. Would that be right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah,
So, so the body is keeping, well, I mean, the hashtag keeping the score, but the body is
yeah.
actually sending us messages in the way that we become sick, in the way that we become injured. These are messages being sent by our subconscious to actually get us to do the work that we can do on ourselves. And that work, it seems like there are self-care self-care, sorry, excuse me, self-care tools that we can take up to actually do that. What about nutrition? You did mention that about actually how that can help. Are there restrictions? Are there things that people should keep away from, not eat, consider not eating?
Well, everything chemical I would avoid.
Yeah, good idea.
Like they
Anything,
say,
yeah, if you
right?
don't recognize it on the label, don't eat it.
Don't eat it. Yeah. They say count the chemical, not the calories. You know, so it's like, if you can actually count the chemicals and you take awareness of like, oh my god, like, am I really gonna put that in my body? So of course, like eating more natural food is best, but I know it's not like everyone's cup of tea. And so the nutrition is a part of it, right? And I think that we can also do a lot of work on our mind, and it can have some effect. And I feel like when the mind is healed, the body will be like just not wanting those chemicals. It's just not going to feel right for them, for the body. Like the body will be like, no, you know, like it's not going to be enjoyable anymore. And so of course the nutrition is a big part of Ayurveda, and it's very fun. Like, I'm not going to go super deep into that because there's a lot of information, but the basic of it is like, in Ayurveda, our body is like form of the elements, right? And so you got like um the air, you know, the fire, You know, all of those elements are composing our body. And when we have an imbalances, they call that a dosha. And so you have three dosha, which are built from those elements. So you got like the kapha, which is the water and the earth. So you can see like it's an energy of like, you know, grounding, right? It's like it's cool, you know, it's nice. It's and then you got like the pitta, and pitta is like the water and the fire, but the water is more like the oil. So it's like it's very like fiery, right? And you got like the vata. Vata is like more the air and the ether. So it's like more, you know, I don't know how to, it's like this, you know, for, I'm sorry for those who are not
Yes.
watching, but
There's a
it's like,
waving of the hands now in an airy sort of way.
yeah, it's like, you know, you're floating, right? And every food that we're eating composed those doshas as well. So if you're eating chips, you're gonna accentuate your vata dosha in your body, and so that's gonna show up as maybe like being too much in your head, or having like dry skin, or maybe having anxiety, or maybe having constipation, or, and so when we understand that the food that we're eating are increasing our elements in our body, and that we need, let's say we're constipated and we need like to activate a little bit more, maybe we'll have to put something more pitta, right? So the fire is gonna, you know, like help you
Yes.
clear those things, you know.
Mm.
And if you're too much in a vata state where you're like not grounded very much because it's so, you know, airy, maybe you need something more like a soup, you know, grease, like a good greasy soup, like with ghee and like maybe coconut oil in there, or like, you know, good fat, you know, and then so that you can ground yourself with that kind of food, you know. And
Mm.
so, yeah, the nutrition is a big part of Ayurveda, and there's like so much knowledge in there. Like, it's just like, oh my God, it's so fun. So, you know, like when you know you're in that vata space, you know, where you see there's too much vata in your life, so you can eat something that will help you ground yourself. But there's also like, you know, yoga position that you can do. You can also do meditation. You can do, and it's all like mixing all those up together, so you have like a blend that fits in this moment for you, you know.
So you're interweaving the different disciplines and self-care tools to actually rebalance the body and find sort of an equilibrium and a place of calmness. Um,
Yeah.
I think my meditation partner might be arriving in the background, but don't worry. When she hopefully realizes that we're having this conversation, she won't make too much noise. And so, yes, I mean, that all makes a lot of sense. And so for someone, or you know someone who is actually struggling with a health condition, looking in this sort of direction actually could be incredibly helpful, because not only is it going to be taking in is your, you know, what your relationships are like, what your work-life balance is, what sort of eating and nutrition you've got, what self-care tools, practices you have, but also it will be using the body as a sort of an insight, won't it, into actually how the body is physically manifesting things that you might not be able to actually
Mm-hmm.
articulate. And you mentioned on your own healing journey, this was the direction you decided to come in. And so you found this incredibly, hang on a second, my healing, I'm just interviewing someone. So crinkling, very, very loud meditation partner in the background. This is, thank you. Oh, this the happy meditation partner in the background. So yeah, one thing that I took up a few years ago was actually meditation. And it's something I now do with my mother. And actually to do meditation with someone else makes it a stronger practice, I've found.
Mm.
Um, just that's my top tip for the day. Anyone who wanted to know about my life. So but what you're doing now actually with helping people, it's coaching. what does that entail? Does someone come to you and then you sort of do a sort of a consultation, and then is it one-on-one or is it a group thing?
Yeah, I used to do one-on-one, and from I mean, it's fun. It's fun to do that because we can go super deep. And also, it takes a lot of time to do that one-on-one. And so, and for me in Ayurveda, like what just like resonated the most was the cleansing process, all of them, like the dinacharya. We call that dinacharya. So it's like the daily routine. So that's what I really enjoy, and the spring and fall cleanse. And so that's why I those two cleanses a year, like that's what I'm working with people from now on, you know. So I'm gonna I'm leading groups every fall and every spring, um with a cleansing process that we do together, which is so fun because it's not always easy to just go through a cleanse. You go through a lot in your mind and your body. The last one I did, like I wasn't feeling so right, and I didn't do my cleanses for a year, and I had like so much stress, and it resulted in like having a lot of fungus in my body and parasite, and like I've created all of that because of stress. And so I was like, like this fall, like I need to get back to my cleanses. And just by doing the cleanses, just cleansing all those toxins, I lost almost 15 pounds.
Wow.
Not of like fat, or like, I didn't lose weight. I lost toxins. I
Wow.
had like 15 pounds of toxins in my body, you know? And so I'm so glad I just like I went back to that, because um I know what's happening in those toxins. If you don't take care of them, that's how we get cancer, because like those things are there, and then the
Love.
body cannot contain them. So yeah, so I was like, I need to step up my game of cleansing, and I just love that so much. It's such a good moment every fall, every spring. It's
Mm.
just so fun to do, and to do that in groups with other people where we can have support of each other. It's just so fun, right? And so that's what I'm doing with Ayurveda at the moment. And if people are like interested in doing one-on-one, like I can take one client once in a while, just for fun, like that. But I'm gonna, yeah, I prefer to do those cleanses because it's just so fun. It's just the
Wow.
food that we're eating when we're doing a cleanse in Ayurveda is just so good. And so it's just so fun to do, and like, you know
Brilliant.
like
And
healing while having fun. I mean, what more do we want, right? It's
absolutely.
just
And alongside that, the opportunity for doing it in a group actually means that you get an opportunity to meet other people who are facing similar challenges, but the important thing being that they are in that positive place of, I want to get better, I want to heal, this is going to work, whereas if you actually, and don't get me wrong, I know that a lot of people do find it helpful to be in support groups where, they're sharing symptoms and all the rest of it. But the reality, I think, of healing is actually, if you want to heal, you need to take what I describe as patient responsibility. You need to then
yeah,
find other people like-minded to help you and guide you on your path to healing. You need to find
yeah,
practitioners and coaches like yourself who are running programs, who are running cleanses, who are creating communities where actually you can go, you can absorb, you can share recipes or ideas or whatever else you're doing in there. Oh, that's just so lovely to hear. We need more people in the world like you. We really do. And so, I mean, gosh, you taught us so much today, and I get the feeling that, like so many things, this is just sort of the beginning of your story, and there is much more to come. So I do hope we're going to stay in touch. Is there anything
yeah.
else you'd like to share with the listeners before we bring this to a close today? Anything that we haven't covered, perhaps?
um Well, not that we didn't cover that, but I wanted to mention that I have a podcast as well, because
Great.
it's so yeah, so
Yes.
it's called Pandora's Gift, and it's all about feminine energy and like understanding what does it mean to be a woman, and we hold so much as women, and we are magical being and we need to gather together, because women, we thrive when we're together. And I'm offering this membership to mothers, because mothers is like another step in that womanhood. And especially when we have kids, it's just so important to be together. And so I'm hosting the every week on my membership. People that are mothers can come and we talk, and it's so fun, and we get support from each other. There's like expert that are coming to give advice or like tools or knowledge about raising kids. But for the most part is that supporting energy that we can bring as mother. And it's so great because no matter where we are, like I'm an unschooling mother, and for the most part, when I speak with women that are having um, kids in the school system, we can still relate to each other, because it's like, I don't know, it's like when we're together, it's like the unity is right there and we can feel it. And it's so good to be there for one another and to understand that it doesn't matter how we do it, because we're all doing it, and that support is just so fun. So if your listeners are mothers and they want to enter that membership, like reach out to me at Marigol Era. I'm on Facebook, on Instagram, and I think you're going to link my website as well, which is marigolera.com. So all the links are in there as well. So for the podcast, the membership, and the programs for the cleanses, they're all going to be there.
Super exciting. Well, I have to have a look those up, because I think that would be something that would be super helpful to my own journey. Oh, amazing. Well, it has been an absolute delight to speak to you today. And as I said, I do
Same.
hope we stay in touch. And for all of you listening, please do follow her on the socials. Please do have a look at her website. And if you haven't done one of those cleanses and you're feeling a little run down or not 100%, I think this might be your sign from the universe that you should check them out. Thank you very much, and we'll bring this to a
Thank
close
you.
today.
Thank you so much.